Okay, so now we're going to take a look at how we could write an antivirus evasion Python script. And the idea is that we're just trying to learn the structure of something like this, something that would produce antivirus evasion. And remember, the trick here is that we want to change the signature of something without changing the functionality, meaning that we want to sneak some code in, having it look like it's something else and having it bypass the security measures in antivirus, which looks for particular signatures, particular patterns in the code. So with that in mind, let's start by importing the base64 library, and that is going to be how we convert our encoding from our normal base 10 encoding to base64. So here we go, base64. And then the first thing we do is we're going to create an array of bytes out of our command. And what's our command? Well, first we can just start out with something as simple as print, and then we can say hello, right? And so you see that this is pretty innocuous, and we're saying we want to have these UTF-8 bytes. And then we create our base64 string. So we take that encoded byte array and we convert it. And we need to do b64 encode. This is a method that's available from that module to us. And we take our byte array that we called bytes and we're encoding it here. And now what we want to do is we want to actually open a new file, and let's call it something like harmless.py. We want to make it look as harmless as possible. So we take this and then we write to it. And what we're going to write is a base64 string that's decoded from UTF-8, using UTF-8 I should say. So here we go. So this, what it tells us is we have a base64 encoded string that's no longer UTF-8. It contains byte array, and the byte array represents a simple Python command, just print hello. So there we go. So then if we look at harmless.py, we'll see there's now this string in there. And that string is our encoded string. It no longer looks like any Python commands that we know, so it's gonna pass any kind of checking for malicious Python code. So this, of course, is pretty harmless, exactly as the file says. So what we want to do is actually make it look like our bot code from before. And we'll need some more trickery for this. So we can say dict. Remember, we were using dict for our os.environ dump from before, where we were taking all the environment variables and dumping them out. And we'll take that dict, convert what we're going to do to a dictionary. And here we're going to use a slightly different syntax. We're going to say import os like this, instead of like we have like here. And the reason for that is that we are actually going to try and write this all as one line, just to reduce the size of it, the footprint of it. And the reason for that is just so it's even less detectable. So let's try that out. We changed it up, there we go. And look, this line has now changed. So now we have this command that is getting written to a file, but it looks like something different. So that was the writing portion of it. So what we want to do is now also have a portion where we actually try and reconstitute this and try and run this. And the way that we do this is we just open up the same file again. We do f equals open. So this code, imagine this code is already done. We don't need this here. And the reason is this is suppose something the attacker would do on their machine ahead of time, and then they would take this file that they generated and sneak it onto a computer as a download of some other sort or using another vulnerability. And then they would also sneak in a bit of code that looks like this. And this code, again, by itself, it looks harmless. So it just says open harmless.py and then eval. And eval is a very powerful command. It basically means anything I pass you in the form of a string. Here you can see what it says here, right? This is eval, evaluate the given source in the context of globals and locals. So basically anything that's passed to it, just evaluate it as Python code. So this is a very powerful way, but it's also a way for a lot of vulnerabilities to sneak into your code. Powerful way to run code, arbitrary code essentially. But in this case, that's exactly what we want. And there we go, we are doing read line. So we are reading in the line that we encoded earlier, and then we're decoding it from base 64. And then the last step is we decode it into UTF-8. Right? So let's take a look. So there you go. See, it performed this just like it would if we directly did something like see, it's the same thing that's happening over here. So there you go. We were able to take some code, hide it, and then have some other harmless looking code that brings it back and evaluates it and does that secret dumping functionality that we wanted. And that is a simple example of antivirus evasion.